Hello and welcome to the Hustle and Bustle podcast. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is being recorded, the Yugambeh people, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. My name's Nicole Bennett and I'm an urban and regional planner. I'm the host of this podcast. Each episode I bring you conversations with city shapers and urban thinkers, leaders in the field of urban planning and city building. I'm located here on the beautiful Gold Coast in Australia. We're one of the host cities for the Brisbane 2032 Olympics and Paralympics. The next 10 years is being described as the golden decade for our city and our region. The conversations on this podcast help us understand the opportunities and challenges ahead. So let's take a minute from our busy hustle and bustle day and let's have a great conversation. And welcome to episode 22 for season 2. And it's actually the 40th episode for this podcast. It's been 15 months of recording and releasing episodes, and to achieve number 40 just feels pretty good. And it's a great testament to the amazing guests who have joined me for these episodes, giving up their time and sharing their knowledge and experience. A huge thank you to all of these past guests, and a huge thank you to all the listeners who keep tuning in as each episode is released. And just a small apology, it's become rather random these last few months. I haven't been achieving my weekly episode. I do apologise. It's just been hard to pin a few people down, which means my weekly rhythm is a little bit out of sync. But someone who I'm super pleased to have pinned down for this chat is Beck. Adam is an urbanist who's worked for private sector consultancy and leading global non-government organisations to advance sustainable community outcomes for over 25 years. Adam is now the Head of Digital Urbanism at Ene.Hub. He leads the company's efforts to continually consider what's next for connecting, activating and measuring urban life. Through 2 core programs, Live and Lab, Adam works with government and non-government customers and partners to accelerate best practice using the model define it, test it, refine it, deliver it, scale it. Adam was previously the Executive Director with the Smart City Council Australasia, where he worked with the world's longest running smart cities organisation focused on catalysing action and investment in technology and data, all with the mission of accelerating livability, workability and sustainability. He was also the Executive Director at the Green Building Council of Australia, where he facilitated the creation of the Green Star Community Certification System for sustainable urban development. Prior to entering this mission-driven sector, Adam also spent 15 years with global consultancy firms, including almost a decade with Arup. Welcome to the podcast, Adam. How are you today?
Nicole, I'm well. Thanks for having me.
No worries. I really wanted to start with you where it all began and ask what sparked your interest in smart cities, and then what has held your interest in this space? Because out of all of the areas of urban planning and city shaping that you could select, why digital?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one. I never planned it, really. I was moving back to Australia with my family after being in the US for 3 years, and I was working for a non-profit startup over there focused on community development, social equity and inclusion, district scale sustainability, neighbourhood scale sustainability. So a lot of good urban planning, social planning, sustainability things that have been part of my career from day one. And I came back to Australia and I was a little bit lost as to what I was going to do. My natural plan B was just always going to be consulting, and I'll do what I've kind of been doing for a long time. And a friend of mine who I would describe as a deep ecologist back in Portland, who I kept in touch with, had recently joined a technology company, and it was just the most out of character thing that someone like that, he's got a PhD in mathematics and ecology, lovely guy, deep green thinker. And I said, how do you end up at a technology company? He said, well, we've tried everything to save the planet and reduce global warming, and I think it's time we really invest in the opportunity that digital and data might bring to helping save the planet. And I just found that so I think both inspiring but also crazy at the same time. And that's when I kind of thought, yeah, digital and data, I've never really played in that in my sustainability career. And maybe there's something in there, and we got talking, and then that led to where I ended up in sort of smart cities for 6 or so years. So that's how it came about, Nicole. It was kind of totally unplanned, and it was all about trying to save the planet, but don't tell anyone.
It's interesting because some of these tech giants, you think of them as these money hungry, profit making, take what they can out of our society. And, it's interesting. There's sort of this love-hate relationship that we have with some of these kind of digital and data platforms. So it's really great to have someone like yourself that's using it for good. And I hope that there's a huge momentum out there to use it for good rather than sort of some of the not so good things that we hear about the data and digital space.
Yeah, and that's an unfortunate part of the journey of smart cities. It kind of originally came from a really good place. Let's use tech and data to help save the planet, enhance health opportunities. And there was a lot of good intent behind it. And I suppose, we have a media, sort of suite of platforms out there that kind of really fight for sort of eyeballs and clicks, and smart cities became a very common negative thing that sort of just many latched onto. Behind the scenes, of course, we tried to make sure that we were staying focused, and it was about people, it was about outcomes, it was about sustainability, the whole reason I got into it. And I think there's been incredible gains. I think there's been incredible projects and award-winning, sort of outcomes. But, every sort of journey has its bumps and it has its baggage, and there's always haters, that's just how it is. But you stay focused. But I think COVID, Nicole, was a really interesting period of time when it came to digital and data, because, let's call it what it is. Zoom and Microsoft Teams kept the Australian economy going. If there was ever a time where we doubted big technology companies and data, that's what sort of in some way kept us together.
Totally. Kept the global economy ticking, I would argue. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I still like to remain focused that digital and data enablers can be a really powerful force for good.
I love it. I'd love for you to talk to me about your time at the Smart Cities Council, and just reflecting on that, what you're most proud of, and I guess what did you take from that experience?
Wow. No one's asked me to reflect on that sort of 6-7 years of my career. So I appreciate the question. I was really proud that we were able to build a community. And when I started it was 2016, and I launched the Smart Cities Council with a bit of a website, a bit of a media release, and kind of nothing else. And it was out there as an idea, and kind of a lot of tire kickers. Yeah, smart cities, read a few things. IBM's promoting that, and Cisco and things like that. So it was certainly not proven. There wasn't a huge, big sort of rush to it, but I think there was enough there to bring people together and have a conversation, and that's what we ended up doing. So I was very proud with the fact that from nothing, we got a community together. The Smart Cities Council, is a membership-based organisation, so building members. And I think we were able to work with government in constructive ways. We saw some pretty good policy. 2016, 17, 18, $50 million Smart Cities and Suburbs grant from the federal government. We've still got the New South Wales government pushing forward on great policy and funding around smart places. So I think we were able to certainly have some influence there with government. And of course, last year was the big win, which I think was probably one of the biggest wins, in that Infrastructure Australia, in developing the Australia Infrastructure Plan, really started to talk about this idea of digital by default. We're a nation that builds a lot of things. We're world leaders in building stuff in Australia, in Queensland, and to get the idea of digital by default on the table, that we can start thinking about not only investing in bricks and mortar and steel and glass, but also investing in great digital connectivity and the infrastructure needed to allow data to flow and for insights to be consumed. I think that was a great win. So a couple of things there that, I'd look back on and say I'm proud of.
Yeah, no, and it was just fantastic work seeing everything that you were doing through that Smart Cities Council, and you've got a lot to be proud of. So I do thank you for that, and just even my own journey, in understanding what the potential of data and digital is in urban planning. Some of the forums and information that the Smart Cities Council put out there were really beneficial. So thank you from me and from everyone else that has benefited from your time there. And you've recently taken up the role at Ene.Hub. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that. And I mean, I heard some of it at the PIA conference in Mackay, where we heard about your light pole of many uses.
Yes.
But in Googling Ene.Hub and following you on LinkedIn closely, I can see that you have some really exciting work, and I'd love for you to talk me through kind of where you see digital urbanism sort of heading with Ene.Hub and sort of what you're bringing to your clients.
Yeah, it's a real kind of fascinating journey, and it started with Hub, which was the first company, and Hub still exists. And Hub was founded 22 years ago, and its purpose in life was and is to design great public place furniture and infrastructure, benches, bollards, picnic shelters. And there's just no more wholesome infrastructure in a city than, in my mind, public place infrastructure that really serves a purpose. And Hub, like many other companies, designed and manufactured and deployed public place furniture. And light poles are one of those. We need light, light up at night. And it was 10 years ago this year that Ene.Hub was born. And the big idea there was that LED lighting was becoming more economical, and LED lighting, which reduces consumption of energy, better for greenhouse gas emissions, better operational maintenance for local authorities. We thought, there's no better thing to continue to do than to help, place managers, local councils and land authorities provide great public place infrastructure. And the more efficient it could be, the better it is. The public place is very expensive to maintain. It's a big budget item for local authorities from an operational perspective. So 10 years ago, we thought our light poles will put LED luminaires in them, and it'll be a great proposition. So Ene.Hub was born. Ene.Hub standing for Energy Hub. And it just went out of control after that. Just as we're putting LED luminaires in a street pole, 4G telecommunications started to sort of play a role, and we had to start bringing 4G infrastructure into the public realm. And just as that was happening, local councils wanted public Wi-Fi. And just as that was happening, the Internet of Things was really gaining pace, and we could sense temperature and rain and wind and humidity. And then after that, CCTV cameras and back-end analytics became more mature, and we could start counting things that moved, whether it be with cameras or other sensors. So we could start counting pedestrians on the sidewalk, e-scooters and cars. And so once you start collecting data, you then need to sort of get into the data game, and you need to be able to provide your client with data. So, our smart poles do 32 different things now: digital wayfinding, electric vehicle charging. So it's quite incredible how public realm infrastructure has evolved as digital connectivity has advanced. And, in this role, I really have been able to bring together my two most passionate things in life, which is place, and people. and this very rapidly evolving digital and data world. And Ene.Hub is at the real pointy end of it, designing it, putting it in the ground. And we have long-term infrastructure agreements with councils and land authorities all over the country, and we get to spend the next 15, 20 years of our agreements helping them work through the benefit and value of this digital infrastructure. And it's going to evolve. I mean, 10 years ago, the light pole did one thing. We're doing 32 things with it now, and it's like, well, what's the next 10 years going to be? So I really love the most analog of analog, a bench, a pole, with the most high-tech digital data-enabled stuff, and smashing that together. I just love it, and it's early days, and I'm really excited as to how the planning and urban design and landscape architecture profession in Australia is going to really be able to, hang out more and more with, the 5G people and the IoT people, and just make awesome communities and public places. So that's kind of that's the neighborhood of what my job is, I think.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And it's so interesting, because I think you referenced COVID earlier, and if COVID's taught us anything, it's now we work from anywhere, and the simple kind of park bench, which once was sort of something that might have been a refuge, when you're just sort of going for a walk and want to take a rest, could now be literally the place that you choose to work from for the day. And with the sort of infrastructure that you could embed in those simple pieces of infrastructure to make them have the capability for people to really use them for any purpose that they want. You could imagine them having, Wi-Fi, the ability to plug something in, I don't know what else is possible, but I remember at the conference, I remember someone poking fun a little bit, saying, can't you just have an electric scooter charging dock off your light pole of many uses? So I imagine your 32 things could easily be a list of 132 things.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I don't design our products. We have a whole industrial design team that does that. But there is a Ene.Hub design ethos that the physical products, first and foremost, respect the public realm. They look good. They fit within the landscape and the urban context, whilst providing more and more activating services, for place managers. So there's a real ongoing design challenge there. Make the stuff look better. Poles get more slender, but fit more in it, because we try and that was the big design shift for us a number of years ago. Rather than hanging all this gear off a pole, let's get it on the inside, and we sort of innovated that. So that continues to be a real, product design drive for us. And I think what's nice is you can still buy a pole that does one thing, shine light. We all need that. But local councils and land authorities now have options. And, this does jar with a number of people. Like, we should go to parks just to hang out. We've got an over-connected lifestyle. Like, this is not good that we bring all this digital into our sacred public places, which we need to just chill out in. And it's like, well, we've got options. We've got options, and we've got a highly connected sort of community and world and economy. And I was at an event on Wednesday, and I said, hands up who wants worse connectivity, and no hands go up, so we're kind of in a really connected world, and we just want to be able to have options now. And I like that challenge of making sure that our public places are still places of respite. We can connect with nature. Kids can play. You've got little ones. I had little ones for years, and like every Saturday morning, every Sunday morning, like it was just religion. Head to the local park, and what's the next best park? Which one haven't we been to? So our public places and parks are just sacred, particularly here in Southeast Queensland with the climate, and we love it. But it doesn't mean that, we can't, as you say, hang out there and work, have a laptop and, run a company, from a park bench, down on the Gold Coast. I think it's a win-win in this global digital economy. That's why I love the the analog and the digital coming together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you're so right. I mean, there's still a bit of fear, and we sort of spoke about that at the beginning, that there's kind of the good and the bad that comes with digital. But I think that, it's inevitable. We're all so connected. Wi-Fi has made that we do go to the park and we are on our phones. It's not like we currently aren't connected at the park.
Yeah.
And, I often take my laptop down to the playground and let the kids, I know it's half an hour that I'll be able to just do a little bit extra work. And, if I could extend that because of the battery life of my laptop dying, then I think that would only be a good thing. So, look, I think it's very interesting. I can understand that people have concerns and reservations, and we just sort of need to keep working through those to try and make sure that people do feel secure. Look, I have one final question for you, and we may have already covered it a little bit in that answer, but I'm really interested to find out what you think is holding us back from embracing digital technologies in the built environment. And so I guess, if you could have one wish for government or other players to kind of implement or take note of or really start doing differently, what would it be?
That's a great question, because it goes to the real important point of, as you say, what's holding us back? Why aren't we trying to exploit this opportunity for good more and more? All paths lead to people when it comes to digital and data, with respect to scaling, replicating, investing, embracing. All roads lead back to people. What I think where I think I've landed on this is that maybe we've tried to get everything right, and this is going to be, I don't want this to be put out of context either. There's just some fundamentals that we got to get right, like privacy and security, and we've got good guidelines, and that shouldn't be happening. But I think we've at times been scared that we're not going to get it right. I think we have also the legacy of those big IT projects, the big enterprise IT projects that always run over budget, that are always risky, that always cost more.
Yeah.
Right. We've sort of got that baggage as well. But when it comes to data, which we have so much of before we even collect another byte, we can just pull it out and start working with it and start asking strategic questions and start overlaying it. I mean, we've had GIS out in the world for 40 years. We kind of know how to use technology tools and play with data. So I feel that sometimes we've tried to get things perfect, and you can never get it perfect. So I feel like we're at a place where we just got to try stuff, have guardrails and embrace best practice and standards and guidelines, but let's try stuff and sort of learn, as opposed to trying to get it perfect and then it's not, and we fear there could be great risk, and then we go nowhere and we don't do it. And that's when sort of things go bad or wrong or sideways. So I think the thing that's holding us back is our willingness to kind of give it a go and have a few sort of, tests and tastes of what it might bring, as opposed to always trying to aim for perfection, because we're never going to get there.
No, and it feels like a moving feast, which we know it is. It's almost like...
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? You wake up every morning and there's 3,000 new things. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'll wait till tomorrow. So that's another thing. The next best one's always coming. So it's hard. It's hard, but it's a people issue. It's our willingness to engage, be ready, ask strategic questions. We don't all have to be experts in it, but let's ask sensible questions. Let's make sure that it's authentic. There's a line of sight to an outcome or a target. And that's another thing as well. We often jump into digital and data with no line of sight to a clear target. And this is where we need to just be bold and have an ambition and reduce this or maximize that, have a number, have a target. Let's sort of see if digital and data can help us get there quicker, cheaper, with bigger bang for buck.
I love it. I think that's a great note to leave on today, Adam. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been really great getting to know you and learning all about the important work you have done and are continuing to do. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Nicole.
And thank you for tuning into the Hustle and Bustle podcast this week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and a review so that others find out about the show. You can follow us on Instagram, hustle_bustle_podcast, and LinkedIn too. That's all from this episode. Thanks again for listening. I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.